So, Goblin mode, this is the word of the year according to Oxford, and it's quite interesting. It's a big reversal from the past when in 2013, the word of the year was selfie. It's a complete rejection of that culture. I want to share some thoughts about this and get your thoughts as well. If you don't know what Goblin mode is, you're not alone in terms of the definition, because I know the concept, but I didn't know the definition per se. I was like, who talks about Goblin mode? But as it turns out, I think if you're probably younger and you're on TikTok and these kind of things, you may heard of these expressions. So Goblin mode, right? This is the word of the year in 2022, essentially. And here's a definition, quote, a type of behavior which is unapologetically self-indulgent, lazy, slovenly, or greedy, typically in a way that rejects social norms or expectations. And it's actually interesting. They're saying this is the first one done by public vote. Also, too, they kind of expanded what word could be. You know, it could also be essentially a phrase. The other choices, so second choice or second place was metaverse. Third place was I stand with, but Goblin mode got 93% of the vote. So when I look at this sort of definition, the thing that really stands out to me is unapologetically, right? You're just going to be like doing this. You're not going to say sorry. And you're going to be like, you know what? I'm lazy. I don't care what you think. That's what I'm doing. And it's interesting because I think a lot of this represents the milieu of going through the pandemic and essentially wearing pajamas all day. The hashtag Goblin mode on TikTok is often used as a rebuff of the, quote, that girl trend, which is all about the best version of yourself. You know, essentially you're getting up early to exercise. You're doing, crazy skincare, doing all these, organic smoothie kind of thing, and essentially showing it all on social media. And you can see the Oxford University Press noted that the uses of Goblin mode rose in the first half of 2022 when COVID restrictions were being eased in many countries, and, quote, seemingly it captured the prevailing mood of individuals who rejected the idea of returning to normal life or rebelled against the increasingly unattainable aesthetic standards and unsustainable lifestyles exhibited on social media. And the two words that really stood out to me, and we're going to have this conversation continue, is the idea of unattainable and unsustainable. And I can just tell you guys, I mean, my wife, she's always on Instagram looking at stuff, although that's how we find restaurants and places to go, because you see where other people take pictures like, oh, we want to go there too, right? I think, though, part of the problem, though, is the unattainable is sometimes, depending on who you follow on Instagram, you may be following people who are literally traveling the world every day and flying to like a new city. And for many people, it's unattainable. You can't do that easily, right? And you're following people that are living lifestyles that are extremely lavish. And it may make you feel a little bit depressed, like, oh my God, I can never get that kind of thing. The other thing too with unsustainable is for people who try to pose that lifestyle, right? Let's say, for example, you feel like you have to go to the most expensive dinner every single day so you can post it on your Instagram. It's unsustainable for a lot of people, right? It's just not practical to go out eat all the time. And in fact, something that we talk about a lot on this channel is, managing your wealth, managing your lifestyle. And, I think it's interesting. So that this Goblin mode is a balance of your social media perception, how people see you, or social media image, about how it's carefully curated, and also to your career goals. And something that I wanted to talk with you guys about is I understand that the culture of, say, quiet quitting. The basic idea is my work job description says I have to do this. That's all I'm going to do because you're not paying me to do more. Another way to phrase this was work your wage, right? The thing is, you only pay me to do these many hours. Why would I want to work more? I'm doing my wage. Or so, for example, say they're paying you to be a cashier. That's what you're going to do is be a cashier. So I understand this sort of culture and rejection from that, say, selfie world of 2013. But I want to share with you a couple things that sort of have affected me in my career and sort of my choices in life. And the Goblin mode thing, although I get it, I don't necessarily fully agree. The reason is I will use the phrase or sort of my own way of life, a way of thinking is you never know who's watching. You never know who you're meeting, and you never know who sees you. And the example I want to use here, this is back in 2007, a long time ago. I'm a lot older than I look. For those of you who may or may not know, I'm pushing 50. This is when I was teaching at Tsinghua University, and essentially I was the most popular foreign faculty on campus. That's my boss right in the center of the picture there. But you can see it was basically standing room only in the back, and people were also sitting in the stairway. And there's me back when I was young. It's pretty funny. And the reason why I bring this up is that when you present yourself to the public, I try to speak well, I try to wear nice clothes, etc., and be a respectable person, because you don't know who is watching. And what ultimately happened is that someone, right, of matter was seeing me, and ultimately invited me to be on TV. And so if for those of you who are familiar with Chinese television, this is Phoenix TV. This is based out of Hong Kong. And it was a really wonderful experience. And again, it all has to do with sort of like being presentable and respectable all of the time, because you just don't know who's watching. Now, admittedly, this is back in 2007, and maybe the world has changed. Maybe we should all go to Goblin mode, where we're unapologetically lazy, as the definition says. But I reject that. I think it's a balance, because I do understand that as the definition is saying, is like, well, all this lavish lifestyle you see on social media is, what was it, unsustainable and unattainable. And I understand that. So I don't think necessarily need to be out there all day, every day to eat the most expensive dinner, as I mentioned before, or, going out and renting Lamborghinis and making YouTube videos, or standing in front of the Lamborghini, that kind of thing. I don't think necessarily healthy. But I do think, though, that you should always try to present your best self, but not necessarily, I guess, in terms of the selfie thing, is sort of like your fantasy self. That's a different way of putting it, right? I think your best self is something that I think is important. Now, I think also, too, what happens to a lot of people, and I'm just sharing my thoughts with you guys, is I grew up in Oregon, and I really get it. In Oregon, it was small town. It didn't really seem like anyone was going anywhere. We're way in the upper left part of the country, and you can make a joke about that we're upper left. It's a joke, but we're Pacific Northwest, right? It's more isolated than other states, opposed to, let's say, you're living in the middle of the country, let's say like Illinois, right? You're literally like in the middle kind of thing. There just feels like going to like an LA or New York seems like really far away. You can't get there that easily. And one of the things that when you live in that environment, you feel like no matter what I do, it doesn't matter. I'm not going anywhere. And the one thing that I would share with you, and it's just sort of relating to the Goblin mode thing, or when I was teaching at Tsinghua when I was in Beijing, is what you have to do is think about, how can I get myself to a position to where what I do matters, and to where what I do, someone actually who may like my services, as a way to think about it, or appreciate the value that I offer, will see me. I give you examples. So, for example, I went to a CW event when I was in Hollywood. Made a lot of friends at this thing, and basically, though, is that unless you go to an opportunity to where you're going to meet the right people who are, say, in your industry, or say who have interests aligned with you, yes, it is certainly true. No one's going to see you. No one's going to care about your talents. I'll give you an example. So let's say we talk about real estate the last couple of days. If that's what you're interested in, like if you're interested in real estate, go to a real estate convention kind of thing. Get to know people in the industry. Like say you're interested, which I'm talking about airlines the last couple of days, go to airline events, these kind of things. Meet people in your industry. You meet people that will recognize your talents and the things that you have to offer. And I think one of the challenges that people have is sort of like when they're basically giving up on life, or just, what, I'm going to be unapologetically lazy. Is, yes, I understand, like I mentioned before, I understand the rejection of sort of this fake lifestyle on social media, but I don't want you to go too far on that path to thinking that it's impossible to do your dreams, because I'm just telling you guys, like, I'm a kid from Oregon. I was born in Vietnam. I don't have any family, and you guys can look at my background if you like. And, when I was young, it didn't seem like anything was really possible, but I always knew deep down that I was destined to go to a bigger, better city. And I don't mean to be trash talking Portland where I grew up, but I just knew I was supposed to be somewhere else. And for many people out there, this is music to your ears. I can just tell you, when I was in LA, which I never say bad things about LA, other than, yes, there's a massive homeless problem. That is a bad thing. Okay, I take that back. But the culture of LA, I think, is fantastic for so many people. And for people who ever talk trash to LA, they've most likely never been there. The reason why I say that is, like, if you want to be a painter, you can go to LA and you'll find people who like painting, and you'll find your group. If you want to be in architecture, you'll go to LA and you'll find people who like architecture. If you want to be someone who's in finance, you go to LA and you'll find people who are in finance. You find someone who likes to say work on cars. I always talk about cars in the channel. You'll go to LA and you'll find people who like to say collect old cars and stuff like that. The point is that there's so many different types of people out there that you will find the niche that makes sense for you. And the way that I sort of phrase it is, you got to find your people. And so, I don't, I just want to emphasize over and again, I don't necessarily disagree with the whole concept of Goblin Mode of like rejecting the TikTok culture that's not real. But I want to emphasize that you never know who's watching and you never know who sees you. And just think about, presenting yourself in a respectable way, and also I guess you could say a realistic way, or just be your natural self. Another way to say it. So I think in that regard, yes, I do agree with that. I give you an example. Recently, it was just not that long ago. You guys can see this here. 10 days ago. Not that many people watched this video. We my wife and I, we actually went to the radio station. I was invited to go on radio here in Busan. And what happened was actually now I have a regular segment on the radio. I start actually a week from today. It'll be pretty fun. I'll go on once a week and do a little segment, and I'm real thankful for the opportunity. And it was interesting because when the producer at the radio station called me, this was just a few days ago, he was just like, hey, I watched through all your YouTube videos. I like your work. You seem like a nice person. Come on the show. And like, okay, fine. Kind of how I want to phrase this with you guys the same way, when I gave a lecture at Tsinghua, or the same way when I met people over at CW, or talking about me people at the radio station, is just, being gracious, putting yourself out there, putting yourself in a position to where you're going to meet people, and putting yourself in a place to where there might be opportunity. I can't guarantee opportunity 100% of the time. Like, for example, when I went over to meet people over at Netflix, this is way back in the day. It's not like something Netflix just dumps a bunch of money in my lap. It's not like that. But, it's just at least being an opportunity to possibly succeed, right? And this is sort of why I always stress to you guys, you just don't know what's going to happen in this life, and you got to keep trying your best, and also to keep reaching out to make more and more connections that you can. And if you feel like that you're in a position where you're not moving anywhere, or you feel like no matter how hard you try, no one notices, maybe you need to figure out a new strategy to be in a position where there will be people of value that will notice your value, that will say, you know what? I think you're like me. I think you're part of my people. Come join the team, and let's do great things together. So hopefully this is helpful and useful for you. I'd love to hear your tips on what you think about stuff I'm saying, what you think about Goblin Mode, if you're in Goblin Mode all the time, if it's all about pajamas and being unapologetically lazy, which I think is a really funny way to say it. But I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on this as well. So thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next video.